Good afternoon. Welcome all to Smart Trucking Live. Glad you could join us. Spring is in the air. It's above freezing here, so I'm pretty excited about that. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Michael Mueller, welcome. Josh Bulldog, welcome. Kelly Patterson from Dayton, welcome, Kelly. Matthew Thomas, gotten caught up in your videos, been really busy hauling logs. An honorable and tricky part of the profession, but hauling logs. I like being in the bush, so that's kind of a nice job. Kelly says got sick over the weekend drinking Illinois water. Yeah, if it was out of that barge canal that runs up through there, I could believe that. Man, that's nasty looking stuff. Trucker Hershey's on vacation. That's kind of nice. Best time of the year is when you're on vacation. Devin Stroud. Glad to see you back, Devin. How's it been? Hope all is well. Trucker Hershey says he missed the storm out west, and I was just reading about that storm, and it's been a heck of a storm. In fact, they gave it a name. They called it Zalia, and I guess it blanketed 3 different states: Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska. I guess it was pretty bad. They got up to a couple feet of snow in some places, and I don't know if Shannon's here or not yet, but I got an email from Shannon about it, and he said that in Wyoming they were, in Wyoming you've seen them like on I-80 and that they'll drop the gates across the interstate when they close the interstates because of the high winds or the snowfall or things like this. I guess guys have been going out and around the gates so they could keep going, and then getting 20 miles up the road and spinning out or getting stuck or going in the ditch or something. So I just want to say to everybody, the gates are there for a reason. Don't go around the gates. Just be patient, wait it out. They'll let you go when the road is safe, but you don't want to go around the gates because you can end up doing damage, end up in an accident, and you'll certainly end up with a big fine when they catch you. So that's not a clever practice. Don't go around the gates. Thank you for the heads up on that, Shannon. There's Shannon. Yes, Shannon there. I just covered that. So Fred Besmer too. Fred sent me an email about the Nikola trucks. That's pretty funny stuff. The long and the short of it was, Nikola has been advertising that their truck is basically the same weight as a regular truck. And then on one of their promo videos, you can see in the background that it says truck weight 29,800 pounds. Oops. And I guess this was caught by that one Wall Street short seller that's been after them all along. They suspect that Nikola may be a bit of a fraud. Here's something else they've messed up, but kind of funny to read the whole article. Thank you, Fred, for sending me that. That was good. Doug Ackerman's here. Hey, Doug, how are you doing? Glad to see you here. Tim Field, Christopher Van Dyke, Mac Freight Gaming. Glad to see you all here. This is just going to be a Q&A today. And before I get right into it, I want to qualify or correct basically something that I had been talking about last stream with GP Transco, and I believe it was Trucker Hershey about the zip to zip mileage. Now, the program that we used to use here was called PC Miler, and it would show zip to zip, but it required an address. And I thought that's what we were talking about. But apparently, and Kathy corrected me later, there is a program where you simply have to put in the zip code to the zip code without an address, and the mileage on that can be highly inaccurate. So if that's the type of system we were talking about, I apologize right then and there, because that's not what I had been thinking. I wouldn't support a system like that. It's got to be as accurate as possible. So an address to an address, including the zip, would be perfectly accurate, but not just zip to zip without any address. So my apologies and my clarification on that. Well, I mentioned that it's coming to be spring here. Even the snow here is melting, so I'm looking forward to getting out and getting the old Peterbilt dug out and putting the batteries in and firing it up. I kind of enjoy working on that thing in the spring. It's nice to putter away on it and clean it. So I enjoy that. I find that relaxing. Anytime you've got questions there, just throw them at me, because I'm just going to rattle on here for a minute or two until I catch up with everything I wanted to say. But one of the things that I do every spring, is I give the whole truck a wax job. And it's getting to the stage now I've got to get up on like a 13-foot ladder to wax the stacks. And the last couple of years, that's making me kind of nervous, because it's getting a little high, and I really don't want to come off just to put a coat of wax on the stack. So I might chicken out of that this year. Something else. We've been in this pandemic thing up here, so everything's been shut down for months. So in November, I ordered a winter toque for myself to wear this winter, and then they shut everything down. So now spring is just about here. The toque shop called and said my toque is ready. It's like just in time for spring. There's my new toque. Perfect timing. I called the barbershop here because they've been closed, and they're booking like a hair salon. This is just like a little town barbershop. And they told me they're booking into April before I can get a haircut. So you might see me going back to a ponytail, because I'll be damned if I'm booking an appointment for an $8 haircut.
You do have a busy schedule.
I do. Yeah, Kathy's right. I do have a busy schedule. So it's going to be tough for me to squeeze in. It's the principle of the thing. I think it's getting ridiculous when you need to book an appointment for a haircut.
Patrick, thank you very much for the $5 donation, my friend. Hey guys, Dave, I'm sitting here at the 180. I haven't ate at the restaurant before. What do you recommend that I get there?
At the 180?
The I-80.
The 180. Yeah, the I-80. Sorry. Rather.
Oh, at
it looks
Walcott?
the same, yeah.
I usually went for the steak and mashed potatoes with gravy when I was there.
Now, to be fair, you've seen Dave's physique before, so let that be a
Light meal.
beacon of.
Get the salad bar as well, of course.
Bad choices.
Steak and the mashed potatoes.
Creamy dressing.
When it gets to be truck show season, when they have the truck show there in July, go for the pork chops that they cook outside. Those things are amazing. But they only do them during the truck show.
He wants to eat today.
But if you're eating today, yeah, get the steak. It's really good.
Jonathan, thank you very much for the 5. I'm going to buy a truck soon. I was wondering what kind of rear ends and wheelbase do you recommend for a highway truck?
Well, depending on what style of truck. If you're just going to get like a regular hood, like a long hood truck, which is what I have and what I prefer. Mine's a 280 wheelbase. And I run an 18-speed with 355s on big rubber. I find the 280 wheelbase isn't so long that I can't get it in anywhere, but yet it's still quite maneuverable, and it allows me to get as much weight as I want onto the steering axle, because I've got that much room to slide the fifth wheel forward. And that's been a really good combination for me. If you're going for a drop nose truck, you can probably chop that wheelbase back about 10 inches right there and shorten up a little. It'll depend on what you want for a truck. And the drop nose trucks already have more weight on the steering axle than what I do. So depending on what kind of truck, but I like the 18-speed. I like 355s rear ends on big rubber. A lot of guys like to spec the 326s on smaller rubber, but I just prefer the bigger rubber. It gets the truck up a little higher, lets more air run underneath the truck, and helps it run cooler when you're down in Arizona and places like that where it's like 110 in the shade in the summertime. So that's why I do that the way I do it.
I ended up skipping this question here, but hey Dave, do you think the new digital dash would hurt the Peterbilt sales? New Peterbilt sales.
If, guys are going to buy them no matter what. I hope that Peterbilt continues to offer the gauges, but it's mostly carriers buying these trucks now. So it'll be carriers having to absorb the price of repairing these high-tech dashes now. You wait. Those dashes will be wildly expensive when they start to screw up. They'll that'll be 8-10 grand to replace the dash. So no ordinary owner operator could afford a $10,000 bill like that. So I hope they keep the gauges. I don't like the new dash myself. You know, I guess they see that as progressive and modern and updating it, but I think it'll hurt owner operator sales if they don't offer the other type of gauges. I think it will. Guy, you know, for like $190,000 truck, you want what you want. You don't want to have to settle for what they're going to give you. And guys buying trucks in that price range know what they want, and it's not dashes that look like television screens.
We're going to try this again here. Kelly says add in steamed vegetables. What are your thoughts on that?
I told him you just skip everything green.
You'd be best to ask Kathy that question.
I mean, it's not a...
I know steamed vegetables are really good for you. I never got into them myself.
You can't recommend them himself.
Probably should have. That steak usually comes with corn.
Dave doesn't eat the rainbow.
I like corn fine. I like potatoes with gravy.
You didn't even eat the first color.
But I like the salad bar, and there's
He's
lots of
red,
green in the
that's about
salad bar. But
Yellow snow.
Yeah.
like steamed broccoli and stuff just doesn't do it for me.
It's not supposed to do it for you. It's supposed to keep you alive longer.
Oh, well. I've already surpassed the average age of a truck driver.
You've
so
surpassed a
I'm
few
good.
things. Yeah.
I'm good.
What are your thoughts on Mack Anthem?
Is that from Josh?
Yeah.
What a surprise. Josh, they're not a bad-looking truck. You don't see very many of them around, but they're not a bad-looking truck. You kind of got, if you're going to run one, you've got to keep it, northeastern area, because you can't find dealerships for Macks out west hardly anywhere. But if you're going to run them like Montreal, Pennsylvania, up through there, you should be fine. A lot of guys like them for the construction work too, the short haul construction work with flatbeds and stuff. See a lot of them on the Toronto-Montreal corridor. Peter Omar says he had a 262 wheelbase with an 18 speed and a 600 cat. That's a nice setup. That's a nice setup right there.
Fred Besmer coming in with the 50 bomb, all ready to start the stream off for today. That is outstanding, Fred. Thank you so much for that. That is more than generous. 50, wow, that's.
Hey, Fred, thank you. And have you been back down to the Nikola plant site yet? I've been dying to ask if you've been back. I know you were there the once, but I gather from watching YouTube they're still continuing with the construction down there.
He does a lot of that,
so that's kind of cool. Container Guru says, I wouldn't like the analog gauges. Yeah. And SoCal Sandman makes the scene. You guys are making me hungry.
Thank you, by the way, Fred.
Yes, thanks, Fred.
Yeah, it was very generous. We'll try and keep it out of Dave's pocket for as long as possible.
On a serious note, this is from Jonathan Menstrom. On a serious note, would you sell your Pete? How many miles and for how much? Jonathan?
About $5.
I would, thank you, Nick. I would probably,
going high.
If I could see 60 grand Canadian for that truck, I might be persuaded to sell it to the right guy if it was going to someone that would take care of it. It's got 1,100,000 miles on it. It's been a really good truck. I still enjoy driving it all the time, but Cat tells me it will need an in-frame within the next 500,000 miles, they figure. And I think that's reasonable. So, but it's spent half its life in California, because that's where I worked it. So if I could see 60 Canadian, I might be persuaded to part with it. I was offered 60 US in Joplin down there a couple years ago for it, and it's been home with me parked ever since. So I think that's a fair price.
Now, to be fair, the trick there will be finding a buyer who doesn't have their sight anymore, who's blind.
What?
You know,
That truck is in nice shape.
depends on who you ask.
You tell me one mark on that truck.
I could put a few on it if
Yeah,
you
you
want.
can put a few on it. I just don't want you to. No.
We wrote our name in it.
Oh,
You're telling me you're
God.
holding on to $60,000 and I'm eating McDonald's for dinner?
Ugh.
Kind of shit is that?
Anyway, I'm still enjoying that thing. I'm looking forward to getting it out in the spring. It's therapeutic work to polish aluminum and wash and wax. So I still like that truck too. There's the advantage of, if you're going to buy a truck, you might as well buy one you like, because then you don't mind spending the time and the effort on it.
Pepper bacon gravy.
Kelly Patterson wants to make you some pepper bacon gravy.
Mm,
Now you're making me
You
hungry.
can just
That
make them
sound-
the bacon, to be honest.
That
It'd be
sounds
to go.
good. What did I see them putting bacon in the other day? That
You can put bacon in everything.
everything is better with bacon. I was watching this
Yeah,
cooking
I
channel,
bet you were watching.
and
that
they
cooking
said
channel.
everything is better with bacon.
That sounds like something you would watch. What was it earlier? Kelly said unsalted Amish rolled cream butter. I've never even heard of that before,
Ooh.
but
Ooh.
but no, don't get too excited here because it's on steamed vegetables, so
Oh.
that's already out of your.
I'd like to put that on homemade bread.
Yeah, you'd put that on
Homemade
shit on
bread
anything, so-
and butter. Homemade warm bread and butter. Oh,
Yeah,
that's high living.
yeah. Well, you should probably watch some more health channels or something.
Was
when you
there
get
ever a
time.
moment when you couldn't get yourself into or out of some place and had to have another driver perform the maneuver? There were a couple of docks. I always, if it's a new dock and I'm not familiar with it, I walk in and have a look at it. And if it looks like it's a hellhole and I'm going to do damage, I just won't go in. So there have been a couple times when I've refused to go into some dump, and I've had to go in and get the shipper and say, bring your shunt truck out here. He can pin up to my trailer and take it in. And I walk right beside the whole thing because I don't want any dents in my trailer. I've done that a couple times when the yards are such a mess, they're so small that I think I'm going to do damage. Then I just won't go in. And there's guys, the shippers will say, "Oh, we get trucks in here all the time," but they don't know a UPS van from a semi. So, no, yep, a couple times I've said, "No, I'm not coming in there. You want the load? You can bring your shunt truck out, and I'll let you pull my trailer into the door, or we can offload on the street, whatever you want." But yeah, I've refused to do that a few times. They don't like it, but it's not worth the damage.
All right, I got a couple of them to go through here. Shannon, what did you ever do to Nick? Well, that's a really long list, and we don't have time for that on stream today, unfortunately. Jonathan, coming in with the $5. I like Nick as a salesman better. You wouldn't be the only one. Jesse Clayton coming in with the $5. Thank you, by the way, Jonathan. Where do you see trucking in the next 10 years? Thanks for the $5, fellows.
Yes, thank you, and good question. It's interesting. The U.S. DOT just announced this week that they don't see that the autonomous trucks are going to be a threat to driving jobs. And I read that today and laughed right out loud, because anyone that's been watching the industry the last number of years knows that these driverless trucks so far aren't working out. So everybody already knows they're not losing their jobs to autonomous trucks. But I bet you the U.S. DOT spent millions of dollars on that survey figuring it out. To answer your question, in the United States, shipping just keeps increasing more and more every year, and more of it now is coming into the ports. And the ports are busy. So there's container work and flatbed work out of the ports. Manufacturing, there isn't as much manufacturing as there used to be. And a lot of the mega carriers have the manufacturing, like the big manufacturers. A lot of them have it fairly locked up. It depends on what kind of trucking you want to do. There's still good money to be made in tanker work, in chemicals and food grade, that type of stuff, because the mega carriers haven't marched in and chopped the rates on that stuff yet. So there's another area you could be focusing on. Trucking, the economy cannot do without trucking, so it will always exist in some form. You just have to find the form that interests you and make sure that they're paying what the job is worth. So, like hauling for the mega carriers, not necessarily so, but there are going to be opportunities in trucking in the next 10 years easily. In the next 20 years, everybody will just be fine. I don't see any drastic changes. I only see gradual improvement year to year for the next 20 years.
Now, before I ask you this next question, I need to know if you're open to trading in your truck for bacon currency.
How much bacon?
Oh, the fact that you're even considering it is surprising.
Well,
so we'll toss it out there. Timfield wants to know, how much bacon would it take to get your peat off of you?
I wish I'd kept my reefer trailer, because if I could have got a load of bacon and thrown it in my reefer, it would last me the rest of my lifetime. Yeah, that might have been all right.
Then you would be so wide you wouldn't be able to get out of your truck door. So that would be.
I trade my truck for food.
That's an actual show, by the way, where people eat themselves into their house and then they can't get out of their door frame, so they have to break them down.
You've got to be kidding.
I swear that's a real thing. It's
Who would watch that?
Probably the people on it and watch it after the fact.
Kevin says the touchscreen radios in the four-wheelers cannot take a lot of rough road abuse. I can believe that. Those screens are sensitive. That's why the gauges were around all these years, because they could take a pounding, take some work. So, yeah, good point, Kevin.
What do you think of the Tesla truck?
I think they've got a ways to go. They're like 2 years behind in their production. GP Transco has ordered a couple, and they've invited us down to drive them when they come in. I'm really looking forward to that, because you can never really tell what the thing's going to be like until you try it for yourself. I know right now they're having issues with finding batteries big enough and strong enough to do what Elon Musk has said the truck will do. So, they've got a range problem and a number of hours before burnout problem that they haven't been able to master yet. That's the delay, apparently. I think electric and hydrogen trucks are going to be the way of the future no matter what. It's just a matter of getting the technology right, and they're working on that. I think that's what you will see for the future, though. Fred and I go back and forth about this Nikola truck. I quite like the looks of that truck. I hope they get it off the ground finally. I don't know if any of you guys remember seeing that Peterbilt that they developed for the Mid-America Truck Show a number of years ago. And it was Peterbilt built it, and it was at the truck show in Mid-America. When were we there, Kathy? Like that year, like 2015 or something like that? That was an awesome looking truck, like a bullet truck. I'd love to see those in production. So there's some cool concepts coming down the pipe, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them out there working and becoming a practical reality in the trucking industry.
Tim, you heard right. He is thinking about it at this point. So if you want to throw in a good negotiation for some bacon, now would be the time to put that in chat. I'll be watching. Anton wants to know, what do you guys think about driving for Walmart?
Walmart has one of the top fleets in the nation. Their drivers are well paid. I wish Walmart's fleet ran up here in Canada. I would have considered working there. They don't. They've got a third party logistics company doing the trucking in Canada, but Walmart in the States that runs their own trucks has an excellent operation. So yeah, one of the best jobs out there available.
70 pieces, huh? See, like, I get the approach with going with pieces, so it seems like a lot, but Dave would be the kind of guy to count each individual piece with his hands, so you might want to stick to packs instead. 70 packs, that might do it. Maybe if you presented it in pounds, that might be the way to go. Present it in pounds. He just hears anything more than 10 pounds.
Koning Bolo says the Dutch are everywhere. Greetings to Dave. Greetings, Koning, and I would agree that they are everywhere.
How many people in the chat still use a CB?
All right. Kathy would like to know how many of you guys out there still use a CB.
Dave wants to know that too.
I still run one. I still have it on all the time. I don't chat on it anymore unless I'm running with a friend of mine. Or, the last couple of years I was trucking. I used to yell across the interstate to find out what the scales were doing up ahead of me. And it amazed me that nobody would come back to me the last couple of years. And I first thought that it was my radio not functioning, and I had it checked. Just guys aren't running them the way they used to. Everybody had one and had it turned up so they could hear it back when I worked out there. That has changed. A lot of guys have headphones and they're listening to music, but I thought it was an essential tool for trucking.
And maybe they just didn't want to talk to you.
And maybe they didn't just want to talk to you.
And Anton
Yes,
has an interview with who was it? Oh, I guess Anton has an interview with Walmart tomorrow. So best of luck to you, Anton. We hope that you
good
get
luck.
that job.
Congratulations. Good carrier.
We've had quite a few discussions on Walmart's quality. For the most part, I'd say like 99% of it has been positive, which has been of surprise to us. So you should have good results there.
West Virginia 379s says he still uses his CB every day.
What do you think the best truck to buy between 50 to 80K? Now, obviously, it's a little bit different for us because, what are we, like 17% off of that? So, or more than that, rather. But
you've got to be so careful with a used truck. The problem with the used truck is you don't know what it's been through up until the point that they've put it up for sale, and you don't know if they've done regular oil changes or regular maintenance. And if you can find a truck that you can find the documented mechanical history, that might not be so bad. But I've always been leery of used trucks, especially with these new emissions motors. I'd be pretty leery. If you were going to run it short and did your own work and you could yank the emission system off, you'd probably be all right. But
I'm guessing you can't get a new truck in that price range?
No.
I didn't know.
No, you'd have to add another $100,000 into that. G. Harvey says he still uses his CB. Ross says he still has one. Grilled Mortal agrees that CB is essential. I think so. Robert Daniel says, I do. Good to hear. All sorts of guys still always running the CB, Northern Run. Yep. I still think of it as an essential tool. And for those guys that don't want to listen to it, I think it's their loss.
Why such the price difference, if you elaborate on that?
What's the price difference between?
Well, you just quoted me 100K's difference between a new truck and a used and an old truck. So a new truck and an old truck. So.
Oh well, is that for SoCal Sandman?
No, that's for my own personal.
Oh knowledge. Well, to duplicate the truck that I have now is $200,000.
Yeah, you told me the price. Why is the 100K threshold there?
Because a used truck, you can probably get one for a used truck for $80,000.
Why is there a price difference?
A new truck would be another $100,000 more than that.
Yes, I know. You told me that several times now.
Charge.
Why is the price difference there?
Because that's what they cost in the factory.
Is there any rhyme or reason to that, or they just like charging an extra 100K on there?
Just because they can?
Yep, just because by the time they put all new parts, build their profit margin into it, that's what they feel they'll sell for.
All right, you might have missed the question there, but Anton coming in with a 20. Thank you very much for that. And I know I already said this once, but good luck with your interview with Walmart tomorrow. Be sure to stop by next week or on our next live stream and let us know if you ended up getting the job. We hope you did. So
yeah, let us know too what yard you're going to be working out of there with them, Anton. I'd be curious to know whereabouts you are. But good luck with the job interview. Gary says he always has his ears on in the truck.
Way behind.
10-4, Gary.
Pepper bacon gravy is made from rendered down fat. Yeah, well, it sounds a lot less appealing when you put it like that, I guess.
Would have to be very careful with liquid hydrogen. Explodes on contact with oxygen. Kelly Patterson. Yeah, tanker work. You've got to be careful. It pays a little better. Kelly's right, but there's some danger to to some of the stuff that you haul. Absolutely.
All right, so this might be in relation to what I asked earlier, but might not be. So is it pending on amount of miles is how much it dictates how much they take off of it, or?
It varies from the manufacturer. Some manufacturers, the resale drops drastically, like Volvos, for instance. But Peterbilts and Kenworths tend to hold their value more.
Yeah, okay. So what are, like, I don't know, 2 to 3 points that they would deduct off of that for the two main carriers then? Or, you know what I mean, Peterbilt and Kenworth. Brands, yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Well,
mileage, obviously, being one
the
of them.
mileage, the model of the truck.
So different models would have different resale values?
Yes, different models have different resale value.
Why would that?
Just because some trucks are more valued, more desired by buyers.
Better track record.
I mean, to compare though, so you have two different trucks and you use them for the exact same amount of miles. Would one be sold for $20,000 less while the other one's only sold for $10,000 less?
Sure. In 1990, I sold 1992. I sold my 9-year-old Kenworth for $60,000. Another guy I was working with sold his 3-year-old Volvo with hardly any miles on it for $20,000. That's the kind of difference we're talking. Anton, he's in Sanger, Texas.
Anything other than that then, or those are just the main two?
It used to be a lot of guys would buy trucks specifically because they wanted a specific brand of engine. That's not so much the case anymore, because certain trucks now you can only get one or another type of engine. You don't have the choice of engines that you used to have, but mostly it's model number. A lot of guys don't feel the automatic transmission has much resale value. So if you're buying a used truck with an automatic transmission, generally it's worth less than the same truck with a manual transmission. There's all sorts of stuff, all sorts of things that go into the consideration of it, the calculation of the dollars.
Jesse, thank you very much for the 4. So I've heard the phrase before, depreciated value. Thank you, Fred, by the way, for pointing that out. So what exactly falls under that then? Depreciated value?
I'm not sure I understand the
depreciated
question.
Value, what does that phrase mean?
I'm not really sure. It's they're talking about how quickly the truck devalues over a period of time. Joe Jones.
Off the lot, it loses value right off the get-go. The moment you drive off the lot, depreciated value?
Yes, but it doesn't just depreciate the moment you drive it off the lot. It depreciates over the course of its lifetime. So that's what I'm trying to explain to Nick there. Joe Jones says Pete and Kenworth are investments. All others are throwaway trucks. Joe Jones. Joe, I kind of have to agree with that. I do agree with that.
I'm very aware of what depreciated value means.
Big Rush joined the channel today out of Toledo, Ohio. Big Rush, thank you, sir. Glad you could join us. SoCal Sandman. Dave, do you remember when running the I-15 in California, CBs were set to run channel 15 south of the highway, 46 and set to channel 17 north? I do remember that. Do they still do that? SoCal Sandman? I'd like to. Well, you're not out there anymore either, so maybe you don't know. But yeah, there was a deal, because I guess everybody got sick of 19 being cluttered through that corridor, and that was why they went to that system. But I do remember that, yeah. And 46 is where James Dean died. I've stopped at that little. Well, I don't know if it's still there or not, but there used to be like a little, like restaurant type thing there. You could buy some memorabilia and stuff. But I used to peddle my freight in L.A., then cut north to 46 or wherever I wanted to cross, and then cut across and then go over to the coast and then up to Salinas, which is where I usually loaded. So I was through there a lot. So I do know that area fairly well.
That would make sense. Lee Harvey, depreciation is for tax purposes. No wonder you didn't know what that was, because you don't pay taxes. So, Sports Guy 17 with the $2. What makes Volvo less valued? Thank you for the $2 donation.
Thank you for that. I think part of what hurts Volvo is the fact that they're a lower price point, so the big fleets tend to buy a lot of Volvos. But then the problem becomes, after a few years, they dump them on the used truck market. And there's so many of them on the used truck market that you can get one anywhere. And I think that drives the price down. I think they have trouble getting rid of the used Volvos just because there are so many of them. A lot of guys are still leery of them. And I think that's why they're not worth as much as they could be. There are just too many used Volvos on the market for sale at any given time in any part of the country.
Now that we've announced that on live stream, the CRA will be coming to get Dave.
Yeah.
That the Canada Revenue Agency, equivalent to the what is it? Internal
IRS.
Revenue,
IRS.
The
IRS in the
yeah.
U.S.
The IRS.
Do a video from jail for your next video.
They'll be starting the car in Ottawa right now to come get you.
Have an orange jumper on for the next video.
You look good in a jumpsuit.
Uh,
An orange one.
Trucker Hershey, 3 years ago, he started trucking at the age of 57. Tomorrow's my birthday. Well, happy early birthday, Trucker Hershey.
Happy birthday, Trucker Hershey. Daniel says, and they're still more expensive than the Kenworth. Which truck is that, Daniel, that you're referring to? I found that depending on what part of the country you were in, either the peat would be more than the Kenworth or the Kenworth would be more than the peat, depending on where you were. Like if you were up in the Northwest, you could get a Kenworth at a better price than you can get a peat. If you were in Texas, of course, you could get a better deal on a peat. Here in Ontario, where I live, the peats were always a couple grand more for the identical truck. This last time, I priced them for a video, and the Kenworth actually came in cheaper by a couple grand. So I was surprised by that. And I bought either. They're both nice trucks. I've had more than a few of both types. They've been good trucks.
All right, try not to go too long with this question, but automatics versus manuals, couple pros and cons for each.
Automatics are good for guys that are just learning to drive, probably, because there's so many things to keep track of. Learning where the gears are and how to shift is just one less thing that they have to worry about when they're learning. I think for these big fleets, it's a draw card to have automatic trucks. I was talking to GP Transco, and they claim their automatics simply get better fuel mileage, and that's huge than a standard transmission. Standard transmissions, on the other hand, I'm more familiar with them. I'm more used to them. So I would be more worried about on a slippery mountain with an automatic. I could get the standard up the hill with no problem. Or if she wiped her feet and spun out, I could get the standard rolling again by playing with the clutch, fluttering the clutch, and feathering it. But with an automatic, I think they're more problematic in snow. Now, guys that are used to them now could probably tell me, no, it's just a knack that you develop. But and right now, I still think manual trucks have a higher resale value than automatic trucks. Certainly, they're cheaper to fix. If you're doing transmission work, the automatic transmission trucks are hugely expensive to fix and repair.
Another question here, and then I'll look at that. donation. Where was it? Do you like the W990 interior?
Yeah, Kenworth makes one of the nicest interiors on the market, in my opinion. I'm not that thrilled about the 990 on the outside. On the inside, very nice, just like all the Kenworths are. Very nice on the inside, but not that struck with the 990 outside. Looks like a big International to me on the outside.
All right. Ross coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you very much for that. Volvos, like Freightliners, are cheap fleet trucks I'll never drive either again. Oof. Harsh words, but I'll come back to that in a second here. But Tim Field just wants to throw out that he'll throw in a cat 3408 and 80 pounds of bacon. That's not an offer you just turn down without thought. Like, you gotta 80 pounds. Like, think about that. Like, that's
a lot of bacon.
I could have the bacon. I could sell the 3408 to the Lettuce King, who'd pay good money for that. If you come up with a set of sticks for that thing, the Lettuce King, I'll have him up here in the morning for it. Back to Ross's comment, Volvos and Freightliners are fleet trucks. They are these days, and I see that as a shame. I never saw the Volvos any differently than that, but Freightliners back in the 70s, Freightliner made a pretty nice truck, like a long hood truck. They were light. A lot of guys liked them for hauling produce because they were about 1,000 pounds lighter than anything else on the market. The parts were a little thinner, the doors flexed, they were a little more cheaply built, but a lot of guys still like those trucks. The old white Freightliners, they were nice trucks, but sadly Freightliner, and who's going to fault Freightliner? They came up with a formula to mass produce trucks, and they did it for profit. So they're in business. So you can understand they want to maximize their profit. It's the end product isn't what most professional truck drivers would want, but they still sell the majority of Class 8 trucks in North America. So they've achieved their goal. They've captured the majority of the heavy truck market with these cheap trucks, but not my first choice anyway. What was that about? I just saw somebody made a crack about flip-flops and automatics run hand in hand. West Virginia 379. I like that. SoCal Sandman runs a 13 speed. Yeah, just old school stuff. That's what I prefer too.
You used to run flip-flops in your truck at
I
one
never
point,
wore flip-flops in my truck in my life.
I don't know. Don't we have a couple pictures of you
You
in a
go look
flip-flop
for
and
them.
a
Good evening from
In
Sweden
your cowboy
to
hat.
Wolfie.
and a Speedo?
Don't listen to these people. I don't know where we find them, but
We don't know where we found you.
Chris Keller says the 990 is the same cab as the 680. I don't think so. No, I don't believe you're right. That's what SoCal Sandman says too. He doesn't think so either. Yeah, I don't think that's right. The 990 looks like a 900. And Freightliner had a baby. It looks like, and the Freightliner had a baby. I just don't. I don't know why they introduced it. Just to be something different, I guess. But I'd like to see the sales numbers on those things. Both Volvos and Freightliners are terrible trucks in my opinion. After owning a Pete and a Western Star, I like the room in the Western Star and the swivel seats to avoid the shifter. That's from Peter Omart. I have to agree with you there, Peter. And I actually like the Western Star trucks too. I actually drove one as a company truck years ago now. It was like 79. But that was a beautiful truck inside. And they're a well-built truck, I think. Heavier. Hi folks, I'm Scottish based in the UK. We don't have Pete's or Kenworth readily available. Volvo is up there with Scania. Unfortunately for me, my employer got me a brand new Man for Christmas. And are you saying you don't like the Man? I'd like to try. I like the look of the Scanias.
That's not how I read that.
How do you read it? He says, unfortunately for me, my employer got me a brand new man.
Yeah, you're almost there.
So for Christmas. So
Yeah.
I think he's saying that wasn't his first choice. We don't have mans.
Reread it.
at
Reread
all
that
here.
last part one more time slowly back to yourself, and then I'm gonna acknowledge this donation. Sally21 coming in with a $2 donation. He says, "See you on the back haul. See you on the back haul." Indeed. If you're out for the afternoons, we'll see you next week on our next live stream. Good to have you in the chat this afternoon. Thanks for stopping by.
Chase the Master says, "How dare they try to replace my W9?"
All right, did you get it or not?
I can't see them replacing the W9.
Okay, so that's a weird answer. Did you get it or not?
I did not get it.
Okay, we'll explain it to you after the stream.
Okay, that'd be great. Where was I here?
Our Mack's good trucks.
Is that from Josh?
No?
No? Oh, there it is. Supercharged B707. Mack makes a good vocational construction truck. They have issues with them on the highways, and they have emissions issues, but so does everybody else. But yeah, basically they are a good truck. Been a good, solid, sturdy truck for years. They don't have very many dealerships out west, though. That's a problem for them. You've got to run, like the Eastern Seaboard to be able to find parts all over the place for them if you need them. But they're a well-built truck.
Kelly says she's currently driving automatic, and I drove in the snow without any issue. Oh, sorry, rather.
Kelly, you don't have any issues with them in the snow? There no trouble? That's good to know. I had a brief history with one here, and I found that the automatic transmission, I felt like it was pushing me faster downhill than I wanted to go. And with the standard transmission, you just drop a gear and run the jake harder. But I was a little leery of the automatic transmission pushing the drives when I didn't want them pushed. And I was told that the idea, what you do is slip the thing into neutral. And you could do that on some hills, but you sure wouldn't want to do it on the big hills. Fred says the 990 is the same cab as the 680 with just a bigger hood. Really? No, that's not true. I was going to say I haven't even seen a 990 in person, but I wouldn't have thought that by looking at the pictures and stuff. Now I'm going to have to go down to Kenworth and have a good solid look at that. I wouldn't have thought that. Huh.
Sport Guy, thank you for another 2. Can't afford new. What's a good starter for local Florida?
What's a good starter for local Florida? Sport Guy, I like Packard trucks. I like Kenworths and Pete's. Find one with low mileage on it, in the right wheelbase and type of thing that you want. That's the way I would go. And there are plenty of dealerships down there to take care of those things if you run into trouble. But I like the Kenworth and the Pete's. Joe Jones says Macks are good off-road. You got to give them that. Yes, that is true. They're all sorts of the dump truck guys up here run Mack trucks.
Somebody did a poem with Western Star in it, but I've lost it.
Been busy with the auto. If you switch, this is Michael Mueller. Switch to manual, you can downshift and lock the gear into place. See, I wasn't that advanced. I'd figured out how to do that yet, Michael. But that's good to know. I figured there had to be some way to shift that thing by itself. So I won't ever be driving one again. But I wish I'd known that at the time. So thank you for that, though, Michael. Appreciate it. Chris Keller says the old Macks were great, and I worked a Mack out west in the 70s, and it would get like 40 below overnight, 50 below overnight with the wind chill, and that thing would still start every morning when nothing else in the yard would go. Those old Macks would fire up. They'd chug like the bejesus, but they would always fire and start.
Did you read Grilled Mortal?
No, I didn't. Not yet, anyway. What was your first truck, and what did you haul? The first truck I ever drove was an International Transtar, a cab over International Transtar 2 with a 318 Detroit and a 13 speed, and I just hauled general freight with it, box freight with it. But that was the first truck I drove, and I always had a soft spot in my heart for them after that. It was loud. It leaked oil like a sieve. But she went to work every day.
Do you read the second half of that question? What beginner truck would you recommend?
A beginner truck these days? Probably a Freightliner. Freightliner makes a little, what they call a business class truck. And they don't get much easier than that. Might be a good starter truck, a small Freightliner.
Jonathan, thanks for another 5. How much for an in-frame on the Pete? How big is the sleeper? Seriously considering, because I know it's been well taken care of.
Well, thanks. It has been well taken care of. It's a 60-inch flat top bunk, and it's got 7-inch pipes on it with a muffler underneath.
He says, how much for an in-frame?
And if you're in the States, to in-frame it, I think you're looking about 25 to 30 to in-frame it. Up here, you're looking about 40 to in-frame it because of the price difference with the US dollar in the Canadian. And it depends on what kind of a... Cat has different levels of in-frame that they offer, but I would do a full in-frame just so I'd be starting from scratch with a clean motor. And down in the States, you're looking at about 25 to 30 grand for something like that. But then you end up with a reliable truck that'll run you another 10 or 15 years. The nice thing about that truck is that there's no emission stuff on it. So you can just rebuild it and go, and it'll last another 10 or 15 years anyway. So the new ones, some of the new ones, some of these new Cummins, they don't get 3 years out of them before they're in framing them, which is ridiculous.
Mark Roberts, looking forward to moving back home to Canada. I'm just shy of 1 million miles here in America with no tickets, etc. Any suggestions for Canadian companies to try to look into? Was thinking about moving back into Manitoba, or moving to Manitoba rather.
Yep. If I were going to live in Manitoba, I'd work for Jade Transport. They're a tanker outfit out there. They're a class operation. I'd throw my shingle in with those guys.
Want to know if your truck was a glider?
No, my truck's not a glider. We ordered that truck new in 2003. We took delivery of it it was one of the first 2004s off the line, and I believe we got that about March of 2004, and we've had it. We bought it new, and we've had it ever since. It's a one-owner truck.
A couple more questions.
What's my favorite thing to haul? That's from Cass Johnson.
Empty.
Bacon.
Bacon.
Booze.
I liked hauling reefer freight, I guess I'd have to say. Although I liked hauling fuel too. Although the fuel, your hands always smell after you handle the hoses and stuff.
That rock and roll ride at the corners.
I guess I'd have to say produce. Most of the produce that I hauled was lettuce out of Salinas, and that was always, you never had to worry about being overweight. It was fairly easy to babysit. All you needed was a good quality trailer and reefer unit. And I worked for a buyer steady for a long time, and I quite enjoyed that job. That was probably my favorite thing to haul was lettuce for him.
Talk about the truck shows this year. That it looks like the truck shows are a go.
We were just looking at the schedule for the truck shows here in 2021, and the Mid-America Truck Show the date has already come and gone. But it looks like the way the truck show people are advertising their shows is, it looks like they're not doing any of them over the internet. It looks like they're actually going to be live in the fields and the stadiums and all that type of thing. So it looks like the truck show circuit is going to be back to normal for 2021, and that's a great thing. Life is getting back to normal, and I don't think you can appreciate a truck show over the internet. I think you've got to be there and walk around them and have a look at them. That's a truck show to me. So that's good news. It looks like we're back to normal for the truck shows for this season. That starts usually in May, and I'm going to try to talk Kathy into maybe going out to Walcott this year. So we'll see. I'm hoping to coordinate the Walcott truck show with driving the Tesla for GP Transco. That's my plan. I can kill two birds with one stone. Hopefully that works out for me. But yeah, good news for the truck show circuit.
All right, chat, we're getting to that time of the afternoon where Dave's pills are starting to wear off now, so we'll do a couple more questions here and wrap things up before things get really wild.
Jeez.
So, will we be able to get across the border with lockdown on and everything, or?
Well, not right now, but we're hoping.
So that's solely pending on us coming out of red zone right now?
Yeah, I think we're in red right now.
Yeah,
So-
we're hoping by the time July rolls around.
So you may as well just toss the coin now and see if we're
Yeah.
actually going.
Yeah, so they just opened up everything here this week, and now they've decided that the third wave has hit us. So we'll see what happens next. But man, I sure am sick of this pandemic stuff. I think everybody is.
That's all because your medication's wearing off.
That's very, very funny.
And when they don't resupply him, he gets very angry. So. And you wouldn't like him when he's angry. It's like Bruce Banner.
I turn green.
He argues with the pharmacist.
We've got our long form stream coming up next week, and it's going to be about unqualified people in the trucking industry and the devastation they cause. And anybody that drives a truck knows that to be the case these days, because they don't train the dispatchers, they don't train the middle managers. Half the time they've come from someone else, and because they don't know what the hell they're talking about half the time, it costs everybody money. So we're going to be talking about that.
It's a 2-hour stream.
It's a 2-hour stream next week at this time. And our Friday video is going to be on the misleading language and terminology that trucking companies use to attract and entice and trick drivers. It's one of my big pet peeves, and that's what our Friday video is about. So I hope you'll join us for that.
Is this upcoming stream going to be formatted like our last one?
The last 2-hour one, yes.
Okay. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that one differs in case there's some people here that didn't catch our last one then?
You tell them about it.
Dave?
Just the long form live stream basically runs for a couple of hours. That's the difference.
Okay, so the actual difference is, so Dave will do what was it between last time? About a 5-10 minute segment of solid talking. Then we'll take a few minutes to acknowledge chat in between because he's got some real talking points that he's got to go over in good detail. So we'll do a little bit of back and forth between
Zingers.
between him ranting uncontrollably and answering chat, and we know he has no problem with one of those two. So and then we'll do a 10 to 20 minute portion at the end of the live stream doing any sort of Q&A to kind of wrap things up and talk about what the point was. So yeah, we hope to see you guys for the next one, because the last one that we did last week was actually seemed to go over pretty well. So I hope you guys will join us for next week's live stream. So
I can probably do a bit of a rant on the unqualified people in the trucking industry. I'm just looking at that title and warming up. So
2-hour rant.
I'm sure I'll have to inhale at some point. You guys can throw in a comment or something. But one of my pet peeves is people bossing truck drivers around when they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
couldn't have figured that out from the title.
Yeah, surely truck fans have more than a share of that. Anyway, boys and girls, it's been a pleasure chatting with you as always. Take care. keep the rubber side down.
Oh, hang on.
Nick's got something to say.
You every time. It's like we've done this before or something. We process every week. Thank you to everyone who came out this afternoon and participated in the chat. If you're a new sub here, I want to thank you, welcome you to the team. If you donated this afternoon, thank you very much for your generous donation. Everyone else who came by and participated, or even if you didn't comment, we hope to see you back again. All right, Dave. Now it's time to wrap it up.
Okay.
The medication's wearing off.
I gotta go. I gotta go.
Go up, right?
You guys take care. Keep the rubber side down. See you back on next week. Take care. Good night, everybody.